Good morning, everyone. It is March 6th, and I am Michelle Marquardt DeVoe. I am the founder of Faith Culture Kids Studios, home of the Speakeasy Cooperative, and we are a company that helps people like you, artists, creatives, voice teachers, singers, songwriters, people who like to think in very cool ways. We help you think like business owners so that you can tear down toxic mindsets, tear down toxic systems, and create a life that you want to live. And we are here today with Katie Jillson. And Katie is pretty amazing, in my opinion. We met several years ago, actually. And she is a voice teacher and a piano teacher. She is an excellent performer in the Boston area. And we are here to talk about some real nitty gritty stuff. And that is being a better musician by understanding business, and how her transition from business or musician mindset, which can be kind of rocky, into thinking of herself as a business owner and then applying that has given her tools and strength to run the business that she wants. And if you are watching this on the flip side, we want to say hello to you. We want you to engage in the comments, and we are interested in what you think about this. This can be one of those topics that's a little spicy. In fact, just this morning, I got a little hot and spicy on my personal feed, and it is public if you want to go see that. But on my personal feed, to talk about how we don't have the luxury, y'all. It's not noble to not think like a business owner when you are in the arts and you are creating income for yourself and others. So without further ado, I am going to bring on our fabulous Katie to introduce herself. Hi, Katie. Welcome.
Hi, Michelle.
I'm so glad that you're here today. You have such a glorious spirit, and I love your sense of calm, even when you're not feeling calm. And I'm so glad that you decided to join us. Can you tell us a little bit about just who you are today? Like, what's up in your life right now?
Sure. So it's great to be here. Um, my name is Katie Jillson, and I live in the Boston area. I live right outside of Boston, and I own a private voice and piano studio here in West Roxbury, it's technically called. And I am an active performer. I perform in the Boston area, and I also teach. So that is pretty much my identity at the moment.
At the moment. And what made you decide to join? First of all, what made you decide to join Speakeasy Cooperative? Because you're one of someone that we call like a boomerang, a bootlegger boomerang. Hi, Jessica. Where, because you were in it for a while and then you took a break to focus on some other things and then you came back. So tell us a little bit about that journey for Speakeasy, and then we'll jump into why you chose to do How to Run.
So when I first joined Speakeasy, it was referred to by my current voice teacher at the time. I was just starting to build my studio, and she referred me and said, it's a great organization, join it. I think there's a lot of information and tools that would be helpful. So I joined it for a while, and it was great and wonderful. I think at the time I still had that mindset of, you know, I can't ask for more money. I can't,
Mm.
charge what I'm worth. I don't feel comfortable. I'm scared, Every time I would raise my rates $5, I would be like heart palpitations. So I think it was scary for me for a while, and so I took a break, and then my studio kept growing. I got more and more students. I had a ton of students at one time, which was probably too many.
I remember.
And then, yes,
I was like, oh my
my
God, how do you do it?
yeah, it was a lot. I think I lost my singing voice or my voice completely twice that year. So I was
Wow.
I was really working hard and at an unhealthy level. So that's when I decided to join Speakeasy again, because I realized the support that was there was like none other. It was all people like myself, and we were all doing the same things, and it just was that organization that I knew, working solo, because we are solo. We're here teaching our lessons, running our business. But with Speakeasy, it was like, oh, it's like I have buddies in my office. I have people that I can lean on and ask questions and ask for advice. And so I joined, and it was really, really helpful. And I, was so glad to be back. And then I heard about how to run, and I didn't really know what it was. And so I learned about it, and it just felt like the right time for me.
Yeah.
I was pretty exhausted, and I was like, I'm teaching a ton, but I'm barely surviving. So how to run, I signed up, I joined, I met with Michelle, and we had a great conversation, and I jumped in. And I can say it is the best decision I ever made for my business.
Thank you.
So, for my business and for myself. And as being a musician, it's definitely, I can see how that program has kind of has seeped into all the areas of my life to make it better.
Yeah. That is so I should have put oops, I put myself on the wrong side. That is I should have put you solo first because you were it was so beautiful that what you were saying. I would really love for you first of all, I'm so proud of you in what you did in the program because
Thank you.
I remember so here's a great example, right? People think like, "Oh, I can't make any changes until I'm done with the program." And I think that just by saying yes to doing something like this, you set yourself up for success because you're already like, we're doing this. It's go time. And
Yeah.
you actually made a huge transition kind of before you were supposed to at the beginning of the program to get yourself ready to make an even bigger, more impactful transition through the program. And I was so impressed by that. That was something that I admired very much about you was like your desire to kind of be like, I know that I can change things now. I'm going to rip the band-aid. It's going to be messy. It's going to be bleh, and then I can go back and then revamp again, which is the point. Like you understood that you wanted to get yourself financially stable in order to do it again later. And I would love for you to tell people about what it was like to do this at the same time as getting your master's degree. I love how you just
Yes.
laugh at it. So, what was that like for you to make the decision? Like, I have this huge amount of work that I have to do, and yet I also know that I need to add this amount of work, this other huge amount of work.
Right. It definitely was like jumping in with both feet and like, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to do it. And I feel there's this little part inside of me that says this is the right decision.
Mhm.
So, as Michelle said, I have been pursuing my master's since 2020, and I'm graduating in 2 months, which is very exciting.
Congratulations.
But I started H2RA last April. And so I was doing H2RA and getting my master's in voice. And I can honestly say, having been back in the academic world after not being there for 20 years and taking this course along with being in academia, this has been such a, a part of the degree that I would have never had. And I think there's always a scary feeling when you graduate from any academic program that you're not going to have the tools to do the thing that you got your degree in. And I feel so ready to do this. And I feel stronger in myself, both as a teacher, as a performer, as a business owner for sure. But I just feel more confident, and I think I can advocate for myself so much more than I ever did before. So
Excellent.
that's been huge, and I think Michelle will agree that that was something that was definitely hard for me to do. And where I come from in the music world, and I think a lot of us, you're grateful to get a paycheck to do the thing that you have spent your entire life working on and investing in. And it's totally switched for me now. I know like this is what I want, this is what I'm worth, and I'm not afraid to ask for it now. So that's been really, really beautiful and empowering in so many ways, and in all areas of my life, in all relationships. So I'm super grateful for that. And I think overall, I my product is better in my studio. I have a greater commitment from my clients. I'm more committed to my clients and my product. So there's so many transitional, powerful things that have happened from doing this program.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for that, Katie. I think that's a perfect segue. Good job. Perfect segue into this idea of like, okay, why are we here? Let's talk about how understanding business makes us actually better at what we do. I heard you say just right then, like, my product is better, and you're performing a 10. It's not like that went away. And that you're serving your clients better. Like you show up for your clients better. And what do you think? What do you think that transition? Like, what was that like for you? What really tell us? What was that like to go from I'm not allowed to make a living wage because of all of the systemic musician bullshit that we learn into wait a second, that's the only way I'm going to be able to do my art well. Because
Yeah.
obviously we've talked about this before we're live today. So, and that is something that you've said to me in the past. So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about that, like those real aha moments. What was that like?
I mean, it's like so obvious that, any other profession that you would go to school and study for and put your life into, you would want to be compensated for it in a living wage, survivable income. And there's just, I think there's, like you said, it's a systemic thing that we believe all along that we are lucky to get a paycheck to do what we
Mm,
do. And I think having that shift, it wasn't like easy, and there's still moments where it's like, I'm worried about asking for that. But the more I practice it and the more I advocate and I stand up for myself, the easier it gets. And, you know, even recently, I think, Michelle, you and I talked about this, the inquiry process.
mm,
Before, I would take everybody. You come, you have one lesson, great, okay, awesome. And then it wasn't the ideal client. So now, having gone through HRA and understanding who my ideal client is, when I get an inquiry, there's a longer inquiry process, but it's more beneficial to the business and to myself and to them. I now have that process of, are you the right client? Are we going to work together well? Do we communicate well together? Can you rely on me? Can I rely on you? So that relationship, building that relationship is clearer now, where
mm.
before I think it was just like they're knocking on the door, I'm going to take everybody who knocks. And now it's different. There's more selection. There's
Yeah.
more choice. There's so much more choice now.
Yeah. How do you think how has um that switch and like I have a choice affected how you choose your gigs when you're a performer?
Yeah, everything. Even just planning a concert and choosing things that artistically resonate with me and
Mm.
that I want to sing, that represent who I am as an artist, that has shifted so much from having a choice from a business perspective. So
Right.
it's all bled into even the artistic process.
Yeah, because you're working with Jess Baldwin as well, right?
I am.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, hi Jess, if you're still out there, you're amazing. But it's so great because it does overlap. So when you define thinking like a business owner. What are some key indicators when you know I definitely have my business owner hat on? Like, how do you know you're wearing your business owner hat?
I think as a business owner, you choose what you want. And I I think that's always the first question for me is what do I want and is this going to work for me? Where before I never I was always last. Where now I'm in the beginning. So it's like what is the vision of my business? What are the goals? What are the what how do I want my studio to grow? In what direction? And how do I need to make that happen? So there's definitely, I said this before, there's the choice. There's so much choice now.
Yeah. And before, it is interesting, opening kind of the conversation to just the mindset in our community. I really resonate with what you're saying about we should just feel lucky, right? We should just feel lucky that we get to do this thing that we love so much and that feels so great and is so artistic. We should just be happy. And that is such a misunderstanding of the historical role of the arts in many different cultures,
Yeah.
and especially in kind of Western culture. And I always find it so fascinating that people find not being able to take care of themselves as like a badge of honor in the arts. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Absolutely. In fact, I'll share a personal conversation I had yesterday with a piano teacher friend who expressed to me that they were gearing up for 4 weeks without any days off. And
Oh
I was
no.
like, it reminded me of me because I used to, a few years ago, I would work 7 days a week. And no, and I was like, I would take these like 2 hour or 3 hour naps in the afternoon and feel guilty about it and not understand, like, why am I so tired? I should be able to go, go, go. I should be able to just keep doing this. And my body was physically telling me, you got to stop. But my mind was saying, no, you should be able to do this.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Where do you
And
think you
I
learned that?
don't, I
Like you
think,
personally, because there's like obviously there's like starving artist mind, there's like the zeitgeist of being in the arts. But where do you think you personally learned that?
well, I did grow up on a farm. So there is definitely that mentality of like, we work 7 days a week. We're at the mercy of the weather, so like
Yeah.
however nature works, we gotta like go with it. And so, but yeah, I think that's probably part of it. Um, and then just, I think that going back to that gratefulness, like work as hard as you can so that when the gigs come, you'll be in the city that you need to be. That's why, I worked for years and years in the Boston area at non-music jobs just to stay in this area so that I could be connected and have singing opportunities.
Yeah.
So it was like
Which is
stay
not,
here,
yeah,
work, work, work.
which is not necessarily a dumb thing to do. Like if you, I think it was
No.
smart of you to do that. And because what you were saying was like, I need to pay my bills. I'm not going to let myself fall into those traps. And I love, that's really interesting what you're saying about like working on the farm. Like inherent in the business model of a farm is 7 day a week work that needs to be done. Um, and I would say inherent even in arts, that business model is yes, work has to be done 7 days a week, but that doesn't mean we're the ones doing it all 7 days,
Yeah.
you know?
Right.
And it's, it's interesting there too, because this idea of gratefulness, I think, is also passed down. You know how that, like we talk about legacy teaching, right? Where there's like so and so who taught so and so who taught so and so. And we generally talk about it in terms of voice stuff, right? Like, oh, Sasha Hicks taught
Mhm.
Michael Jackson. I mean, all this kind of stuff. And then also the classical. Every genre has their legacy type teaching, and every instrument too. Like this happens a lot in guitar, piano, right? It's this legacy. But one of the things that you're taught through your legacy is how to view yourself.
Right.
And I think that there's this narrative that you have to pay your dues. You have to have a shitty life in order to earn having a great life. You have to have
Right.
shitty gigs in order to earn having good gigs, right? You have to have
Yep.
a studio where you are teaching 50 students, right? In order to, but in the business side of things, because you're not taught how to actually get there. So at least in the instruments, there's like, here's what the shitty gig thing looks like. Here's where you do your yaps. Here's where you're doing your performing. Here's where you're taking the exposure gigs, and that you kind of are shown how to do that musically. But
Yeah.
there's nothing in the middle of that black box between like, here's your crappy underfunded studio into here's where you're cooking with gas.
Right.
Um, and I'm so curious again, just about that switch. What do you think would happen in your area if, because Boston is a very specific area in terms of how they believe about the arts and
Hmm.
in relationship to how much money is there. I am shocked when I hear stories about the amount of money available in Boston and then how that is actually translated into these really low paying gigs.
Yeah.
What do you think would happen if every performer in Boston, every teacher in Boston started thinking like a business owner? What do you think they would do differently?
I think first they would charge more, just start there. Like, what do they want? What do they need?
Mm-hmm.
I definitely, one of the things that I see here, having had a pretty big career in the liturgical musician setting, is there is a severe underpayment of musicians here. And it's something that I think about every day, especially since doing H2RA.
Yeah.
And, I know there's been meetings with certain organizations in Boston to try to change it and to just bring awareness to it. But I really think it's getting to the point where like it's not okay. And if it means musicians don't show up anymore, that might be what it means for a little bit. Because I think about we're a very music school heavy city, a very college centered city.
Yeah.
So, we have lots of great conservatories and universities here that all have prominent music programs. And so I know these students are taking these gigs that are paying very, very low. And I think about myself back in that day where I would take that gig, but spend half of it paying for transportation to get to the gig.
Mm.
So it's like some of the wages I see for liturgical music around here are wages I made in 1999. So it's not okay. It has to change. And the the singers and musicians that are showing up to these gigs are great musicians and have worked as hard as I have, if not harder, at their craft and deserve to be paid what they're worth. I think if you look at any other profession, if I was, a surgeon and I spent the same amount of time that I have spent studying music, studying to be a surgeon, I would want to get paid what I was worth and for my experience. And, I know I can say for a lot of people, we've been working on this since we were like 5 years old. So it's been a lifetime of work,
Yes.
and we should be compensated for what we're worth
Yeah.
and for what we want. And, things are expensive. Boston's expensive. It's expensive to live here. The rents are high. So, for the young musician who's in their 20s who's taking a church gig that's getting paid under $100 for a gig is it's shameful. It's awful.
That is awful.
So, it's something that I'm really passionate about, and I feel going back to empowerment, I feel empowered to be that voice in our community to say this isn't okay anymore.
Yeah.
So,
And what business principles do you think, like we talked about this idea of ideal client, what other business principles do you draw on in order to be that voice of empowerment?
I think going back to what do I want? What do I need?
Hmm.
Do I need to survive?
So like planning
Um,
ahead rather than just like
Planning,
gig to gig.
right, like grasping at whatever comes and
Hmm.
saying this is how much I charge, and this is how much I need to be paid in order to come and sing at your church.
And actually
Definitely,
knowing that
like,
number,
yeah,
like knowing that number, because I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I was just
no,
thinking this idea of business principles. It's like, because that was kind of my rant this morning, is this idea that people in the arts are financially illiterate.
yeah,
So how often do we see, well, how much should I charge for this gig? Why don't you know that? How much you
right,
should charge? I mean, I know why you don't know that. I'm not being shameful or judgy. I understand why people don't know that. But that's not the question. It's, what are my goals? Like you said, what are my goals? What is the business's goal in my life? What is the business's role in my life? What does the business need to do in order to get me what I want?
mhm,
How much is that going to cost to make that happen?
right,
And where does the percentage of revenue that I want to bring in from performing fit into that overall budget,
right, yeah,
which is
and
incredible.
it is. And, one of the things that we learned in HRA was just having those numbers in front of you, putting them into a system that's showing you how much money does it cost for me to live? How much money do I need to make in order to cover my living expenses, but also earn money and have revenue? I never understood what revenue was until I took this. I mean, I knew what it was, but I thought it was, for me, it was like, oh, it's enough to pay all your bills and to put food on your table.
Right. That breaking even was the goal.
Yep.
No, breaking even is called living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
And that's not
Yep.
how you grow a business. You can't.
No.
So I love, well, I'm so glad to hear that that was one of your takeaways. But yeah, this idea of like you're bringing in your revenue and part of that revenue must be profit,
Yeah.
because profit in a sole proprietorship or a small team based business means something very, very different than profit for Apple or Coca-Cola or, you know, Amazon,
Right.
which I think actually, I mean, well, I won't digress onto the business model of Amazon and all of their shenanigans, but I love that too. How about because I really saw you do a lot of changing in terms of the way you were able to uncouple your identity from your business. Like when we got into those like stalk your inner sage modules about wisdom and decision making, and then about like boundary setting and policy creation and terms and conditions, and then into kind of that branding aspect. What was that like for you to uncouple your person, the Katie identity, from this business that you run? How was
Yeah.
that helpful?
So, one of the biggest changes that I made to my business model was I started to do a subscription model. And
Mm,
so that was very, very changing for me. Because I was definitely always like, okay, if you missed a lesson, I would make it up. I would rearrange my life to make up the lesson, and that wasn't beneficial to my time. And I was always just there was no boundaries. I was just expected of myself, and I thought my clients expected it that I would just make up the lessons and, you know, everything would be fine. But
mm,
that was really hard. It's really hard to find makeup times and to honor that. So I, under the model that I made, now makeups are more controlled. There's a limit to them, and it's definitely just the whole subscription model is stronger and more beneficial to the product. So I think like that was a separation for me to say, okay, I created this thing, this is how it runs, and I'm here and I'm living my life and doing this thing, but it's not, I have separation from my business now. I'm not always overextending myself to run everything and to, make up for lost time. It's all the subscription kind of takes care of everything.
yeah, I love how you specifically pointed out that the business model is what gives you your life back
Yeah.
so that you can create other areas in your life that are around your identity, you know?
Hmm.
And so, what do you think? Because I know we've been on for a while. So, what do you think you would tell? Well, actually, I don't want to ask you that yet because that's the end question. The end question is like, what would you tell anyone thinking about H2RA? You know, but I think my first question would be, where do you? I'm trying to think how I want to word this. Where do you think you will go next based on what you know now?
Hmm. So one of the things I have a million ideas a day,
Mm,
and I think that itself, allowing having the mind space and the creative space to think about the next steps is huge. I think before I was just surviving, and that all I could see was that, okay, teaching 50 students, making up every lesson, being underpaid, working 7 days a week was it. And
mm,
now, since so much of that is cleaned up and more efficient and more profitable, I have space to dream and create and to get excited. And I also have the tools to take those dreams and creations and put them into action. And, I'm not going to say it's never not scary, but I have so much more belief in myself and in my product. And I have Seco and all the people from H2RA in my corner. I don't ever feel alone. And I am a sole proprietor. It's me, but I'm not alone. I feel very, I think every business owner, whether you have a huge business or a small micro business like me, you have those moments of like, oh no, it's all going to fall apart. And those moments don't take me under anymore. I'm like, okay, there it is, but you have X, Y, and Z coming down the line. You have this plan. You're gonna launch this offer. Right now, I'm working on a whole rebrand with the wonderful Angela Winter.
hi, Angela,
Um,
who was also in this last cohort of How to Run, as she's transitioning her business model as well.
yep.
So it's great that you get to be a part of that, and that she gets to be a part of your transformation.
Yeah, it's great. And having gone through H2RA and understanding like branding yourself and marketing yourself, and now having time to like work with Angela, build my brand, put it out
Hmm.
there, really fine tune it and launch it is really the next step that I'm taking for my business. So
Yeah, you have time to think. I think that's
I,
the biggest thing that I heard you say, that I was like, "Oh, I'm so glad she said that," because you're not a business owner if you're not taking the time to innovate within your business.
mhm,
And if you just have a job like everybody else, it just happens to be that you created the job, you created the shitty job for yourself, right? Which is why we call
right.
it How to Run Your Biz Without Hating Your Boss, right? We want you to get
Yep.
out of, we want you to no longer have a job in your own business. We want you to own a business that gives you the opportunity to create wealth and to create the life that you want. And that's so great.
Yeah.
I also love what you said, yeah, just about the space, because you're literally, your model gave you the space
Hmm.
to think about stuff.
Totally.
It's amazing how we creative people rob ourselves from being creative because of our mindset that we should not, that we've somehow sold out if we think about money and business.
Right.
I'm like, you literally set yourself up to not be creative.
Yeah. And the more I create and turn things into action, the more I realize that's the part I love the most. I love creating. I really do love running a business. I love every aspect of it. It's just now like I have systems in place and plans and even more connections and support with how to launch with helping launch those ideas.
Yeah.
And that's just, I mean, I feel like I can do that all day long and it's just so much fun. So
It is fun. And it
super
wasn't
fun.
fun 2 or 3 years ago for you, but it is fun now.
No, because I used to have these, I probably had these little ideas, but I was like, oh, I can never do that. And now it's
Mm.
like, I'm going to write that down and we're going to go back to it and work on it, brainstorm and build it.
Yeah. And see like what works about it, what doesn't work about it, does it need to be
Hmm.
tweaked, and not have it be so personal.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the big question. If there's anybody out there, and because it's an investment of time, emotional energy, mostly emotional energy and capacity, and money, if there's anyone out there, what would you say to a person who's like, well, H2RA, really?
I think it is an investment, but it's an investment with bountiful return,
Hmm.
hands down. You will it will change your life and you will feel better as a musician, as a studio owner. I feel better as a person. And even in my personal relationships, I feel like I can advocate for myself more than I ever did. And so I can, I can't recommend this program enough. I think about it every day, and you meet great people. It's not easy. There were definitely some days where I cried because there were realizations that about myself that were hard, but I'm so glad I realized them and that I had support around it and ways to execute a plan to move to the next step. So I recommend everybody do this program. It's wonderful.
Thank you. And, transformations aren't just for the people who start from zero, right? You did
Mhm.
not start from zero. You had a threat. Technically, you were over demand, right?
Yep. Yep.
It is for people who no longer want to be getting by.
Yeah.
And that is whether you're a 20-year-old and you're just starting out and you want to prepare to never have to get by, or you're in your 50s and you're not in, well, I don't know how you feel about people knowing your age. But
I don't
yeah,
care.
yeah, me neither. But I'm like, oh, maybe I should say that. Or you've been in business for a really long time,
Mm-hmm.
and you're just like, I don't want to do it like this anymore. And that's what
Yep.
I love too, Katie, is because you did have a thriving studio,
Yeah.
but you as the business owner were not thriving, and now both are thriving, and I love it.
Yeah.
I love it so much. Katie, thank you for taking time out of your day, now that we know that it is the most precious commodity of your life, to have back. Thank you so much for sharing your experience with us, for sharing your heart and your spirit of generosity to be here today. I really appreciate you.
Thank you, Michelle. It's been a pleasure.
You're welcome. Okay, everyone. Katie, I'm going to put you on the side for just a little bit. Everyone, thank you so much. When you make the decision to build a business that gives you capacity back, gives you your time back, gives you your brain space back, think about all the ways that makes you a better musician. It helps you think about your budget. It helps you think about when and how you're going to practice. It helps you think about why you're going to take what gig, even if it's not a paying gig. Like why would you take one gig over another gig? It helps you make decisions, put yourself first, and it helps change some big systems that need to change, just like Katie is in Boston with her fellow musicians and the liturgical community. If you have not checked out how to run your biz without hating your boss, we have our information and sales page ready to go. We'll make sure that that's dropped in the comments for you. We'd love for you to check it out. And if you have that little inkling, like maybe it's time, fill out the application, set up the call. I'm not going to let you do something that's not right for you at the time, but I want you to see where the possibilities are. And if this year isn't the right year, maybe there's another year that is right for you. And of course, you are always invited to join us in the Speakeasy Cooperative to, get your toes wet. Dip in those little toesies into thinking. All right, everyone, have a fantastic rest of your Monday, and we will see you soon. Bye.